Good evening. My name is Leonard J. Parker Jr. This is another episode of Ain't No Way This Happened, where I tell 2 episodes and you figure out if it happened or not. I'm a retired school teacher from the public school system in Louisiana of 30 years. Our first episode is a principal who's having affairs with his teachers. It is a middle school in a small city. Okay, and he had a routine of things he'll do. He basically would tell the teachers, hey, I need to talk to you, and they would go into the classroom. But the teacher would go into the classroom first, alone. And then he would come into the classroom, and he would lock the door behind him and cut the lights off. And he was having affairs with his teachers. He was having affairs with 2 or 3 teachers. Not only was he having affairs, he was a deacon in the church, and also the principal of the school. And these teachers was fighting over him. Oh, you know he was married. But the teachers was like, it's my turn. Oh, it's my turn. They accepted it. They accepted that he was married, a deacon in the church, but they was having sexual relationships with him. And when he was locking those doors and cutting them lights off, who knows what was happening in that classroom. But guess what? He messed up with one teacher who told me this story. And he went in there with a veteran teacher of 20 years in the 80s, and he locked that door and he cut that light off. And she said, oh no, partner, it ain't going down like this. Matter of fact, let me tell you something. If you do this again, I'm gonna turn you in for sexual harassment. He ain't mess with that teacher. But come to find out, he was messing with a lot of the younger teachers like that. Did something like this happen? A deacon in the church, a principal of a middle school, locking the door and cutting the lights off, having sexual relationships with his subordinates. You gotta figure out if that happened. Our next episode, we gonna go back to 1975. Teacher told me about this one. She's a female teacher and she's sharp as a whip. And she's not only a teacher, she's working at the school board. But guess what kind of hairstyle she have? She have an afro. And she walking up on campus and those Caucasian teachers are giving her a little bit of the boo-hoos, making all kind of negative comments about her, and she ain't did nothing to nobody but trying to do her job. See, when she was working at the school board, she get to go to 3 or 4 different schools a day and do her job. See, she wrote the special ed curriculum for this small school system. And she was implementing, making sure the teachers at that school was following the special ed curriculum. But the white teachers were so jealous of her. How does this young African-American teacher get to travel to different schools and don't have to teach in the school system? So they start calling her nasty names. One of the names they called her was, look at this little rich black girl. And she was driving a hoopty. She said, how they calling me little rich black girl? I'm driving a daggone hoopty. I'm trying to make it just like them. But she was young and she was black and she didn't teach in the class. So she go to the principal with a complaint and she said, look, they're saying racist comments to me. Now we take it, this 1975, 1976, she say, but guess what? The principal told her, well, Miss Johnson, you have to do away with your afro. If you get rid of your afro, guess what? Maybe these teachers won't make these comments with you. And I'm looking at that and listening to this story that the teacher told me, and I'm saying, I remember when the Louisiana High School Athletic Association wouldn't let a kid participate in the state championship game because he had braids. I remember one kid dyed their hair and they couldn't even participate. So we got to look at the trends of what's happening in our country and in our history of our state and say, the afro is very intimidating. If you see somebody have afro now, it's no problem. At one time, braids was very intimidating to certain people. Dreads is very intimidating. Coloring your hair and dyeing your hair used to be very intimidating. It's trends that you go through. And when you get these trends, you look at low income, associated with gangs, ghetto, whatever you want to call it, they associate these hairstyles with these different areas, and they're very intimidated by it. And then 10 or 20 years later, it's no problem. But you got to go through it sometimes. But this particular principal told a teacher she need to get rid of her afro, and she might don't have racist comments about her. Wow. And guess what? The other episode, the principal's having sexual relationships with his co-workers and had a routine. The deacon in the church principal cut the lights off and locked the doors, and they cornered. I got them trapped. Do you think something like this happened? You got to figure it out. This is Leonard J. Parker Jr. signing off.